Hi, everybody. It's Michelle Jackson. I am here with the November Pen Posse Roundtable, and we have an amazing group of writers who are with us for 2 hours. I mean, 2 whole hours to talk about a topic that I think is going to resonate with a lot of you out there, writers as well as readers. We're going to be talking about controlling the narrative as Black writers, defining our truth and uplifting the Black community. And this is going to be an in depth conversation about how Black writers are empowering ourselves through writing books and publishing. So we're going to get to everyone on the screen. But before we do, a couple of things I ask that each of you do for me. One is to find us on Facebook at author Michelle D. Jackson. That is my Facebook page. And you will see a link posted at the top where you can share this on your page. So be sure to share this on your Facebook page. Also, you can find us at YouTube at BW_workspace. So once you see us, share it, let everyone know that we're here, we're live, we can answer your questions live. And so you can drop your questions in the chat box. And so if you want to make sure that we see you, there should be some information that you will see before you in the post. If you're watching this on Facebook, that will show you how you can basically register with StreamYard so that we can see your name. But regardless, you can always drop your information in the comment area and we will get to those questions. For now, though, let's get ready to talk for 2 hours and be sure to share with us what you feel about this topic. We're going to be talking about controlling the narrative as Black writers and why this is so important to us. It makes me think about a situation that I wrote about not too long ago in one of my medium.com articles. And it talks about the book Our Nig, which was a book that was written in 1859. Okay, this was the first novel written by a Black person that was published in the United States. The story is called Our Nig. However, and it was written by author Harriet E. Adams Williams, and it traces the trials and tribulations of Fredo, a mulatto girl abandoned by her white mother after the death of her Black father. And Fredo grows up as an indentured servant to a white family in the 19th century Massachusetts. Now, this book was written in 1859 by an African American, but many people thought it was written by a white person until Henry Gates discovered that in 19 and actually re-released the book in 1983. That's 100 years later. You many no over 100 years later. Think about that, a story written that really dictates or details what happened with a young mulatto girl in Massachusetts who was an indentured servant. It was written by a young African American woman, but she never got credit for it. So today, what we're talking about is all those Black hidden treasures and why it is so important that we continue to write and put our work out there. Like what Henry Gates did for this author, he rediscovered a masterpiece and was able to make sure that she got credit for the work, but also got credit for controlling the narrative, telling her story her way. So today we're going to be talking about that. Let's get our people on the screen so we can get into this conversation. Hello, everybody. How you doing? How is everybody today?
Good morning.
Morning.
Hello, everyone.
We have a big pen posse, right? I love this. Beautiful faces from everywhere, all over the United States and Trinidad. And we're going to meet some amazing writers who have put forth a great deal of energy and effort into making sure that you got a chance to hear their stories and their stories their way. I don't know if they've all self-published or traditional published. It doesn't even matter because they got their work out there and the work was put out there so that it can help to heal them as well as to heal the community. So we're going to talk a little bit about this topic. What we say, it's controlling the narrative, defining our truth, and uplifting the Black community. An in-depth look at how Black writers are empowered, everybody. That's the key word today, through book writing and publishing. So before we get into this topic, which we're going to break down into 4 different areas, we're going to start by looking at every story matters. That's the first topic area we're going to focus in on, is every story matters. I get everybody to make sure your mics are, to make sure you mute yourself. Okay, thank you. And then we're going to talk about controlling the narrative and then empowering our community. And then we're going to follow up with talking about book publishing and marketing in our final words. But before we do that, let's have everyone tell us a little bit about yourself, your work, and very quickly talk to me about why you write. Let's start with you, Cecily.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I am Cecly Mitchell, and I write dual timeline historical fiction, basically. I write about events that have occurred in the history of my native island, Trinidad and Tobago, and I infuse them with the details that are not really known and with the feelings and the emotions of the Trinidadian characters living in colonial Trinidad as opposed to those, their descendants, who are now discovering some of the history of that part of the island. I, I also facilitate an incubator workshop for writers of commercial fiction here in Trinidad, and it's amazing to watch um, the authors come through with works on our indigenous First Peoples. Some of the history is not known, so that in working both sides of the coin, so to speak, as a writer teacher and as an author, I get to experience and bring forward those stories that are important for Trinidadians and people in the diaspora to listen, to learn, to listen, to have, to read, and to know what is taking place or what took place and how we are moving forward as a country, as a people, to remedy those situations. Um,
Tell me something. What do you find is something that Americans that we don't understand about your history that you want to make sure that we fully understand about the Trinidadian history?
a lot of Americans, those who have no context at all to the Caribbean, think that first, Trinidad and Tobago is part of Jamaica, that we don't speak English, that most Caribbean people, by and large, and as somebody who has studied abroad, uh, that we don't speak proper English. And I've noticed that within recent times, the work that has been recognized has been infused with the patois and the dialects of the country, so that it reinforces the stereotype that we don't know how to read and write proper English. And um, that I often get asked, you live very close to South America, so the assumption is that we are native speaking, Spanish speaking. And even with the categories in the large ebook stores, Caribbean literature is placed with Latin American and Caribbean literature, so that we have to continually fight for that little space. Those of us who speak English, and there are huge swaths of Caribbean islands where English is the native language, we have to continually fight for our space to get our work out there, you know. So we want to let Americans know that um, there are a large group of other islands who are not part of the Dominican Republic as Dominica, that we are not part of what of Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, that Barbados is not just for a vacation, that there have been Caribbean authors making huge successes. Um,
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I want to make sure we can get everybody in, but I definitely want to come back to you to talk about that. I've been to Barbados and I've been down in that area, and I'm loving that you're here to talk about these differences and understanding some of the things that we need to demystify about writers from your region of the countries of the world. So that's excellent. Thank you so much. Now, Born, tell us a little bit about yourself, your work, and why do you write?
All right. Well, my name is Narramore. I'm a self-published author of 3 books. Initially, my passion was making music, hip hop, writing, rap lyrics and making beats and stuff. But I went to prison for about 15 years. And while in prison, I didn't have the luxury of being in the studio. So I substituted that with writing books. It was an experiment at first. My first 2 books were novels, but then my third one, this one, is called A Fiery Furnace. I published it. It's like a memoir, you know what I mean, about the 15 years I did in prison, different stories. And I shared my perspectives on, God, health, anything that could kind of like further Black people. That book was more towards that. You know what I mean? Yeah.
You know what? I was so impressed with your information when you submitted to be a part of the Pen Posse. And I want to be real clear with everybody. I literally don't really know any of them except for Miss Kai, who participated with an event for me last year, workshop. But I don't know the people on the screen, and I do this intentionally. We literally select our participants based on their submissions. And so I was so excited to see you submit and to talk about the work that you did while you were incarcerated. Talk to me very quickly about the resources that you had in prison to be able to write a book.
Nothing. Cell phone, illegal cell. I don't know if I can say this, but illegal cell phone is what I used to type up my books. The first book was typed on a flip phone with no type of spell check, nothing like that. I had the T9 worded out. Yeah, that's it. And my family, I had to like email everything out and get it, converted into Word documents, and then go on Google and find out, how do I publish a book? How do I get a barcode? How do I copyright? How do I get an ISBN number? All of that stuff I researched myself, in jail.
Why was it important for you to do this? Just quickly tell us, why was it important?
I'm just an artistic person. Like, I got to be creating something.
Mm-hmm.
You put me in a cave, I'm gonna come out with something. That's just how I am.
Excellent. Thank you for being with us.
Right.
Ms. Kaya, explain, talk to us. Who are you? What are you doing? I know you're doing a lot of things. Talk to us about it.
Indeed. If you work hard for someone else, you'll make a living. If you work hard on yourself, you'll make a fortune. This quote by Jerome has been a driving force in my life in transitioning from a 9-to-5 and into working in the literary world full time. I am Nalena Kai, a USA Today and Essence Magazine national best-selling author of 39 books, a literary agent who has landed book deals with traditional publishing houses, a developmental editor, a motivational speaker, and the book whisperer, the person that people come to when they're thinking about writing and publishing a book, and I will help them to do the damn thing. As a woman who was adopted by my biological mother, yes, you heard that right, and whose father and uncle did not respect my right to say no, I put my pain on the page, and the page became my passion, and now that passion is my purpose. So my writing was my journey into healing myself, and the books I penned had the focus of helping others to heal.
Excellent. And that's what we're going to hear a lot today about, this idea of writing. Why are we writing? I mean, a lot of us are writing so that we can exercise the pain and the struggle and the things that we have had to deal with as Black people, as Black writers, as a woman. We're able to purge those feelings and put them on paper so that our readers can digest them and learn something about us, and hopefully learn something about themselves. So we're not just doing this to be selfish, and most of us are not doing this and getting rich either. I mean, very clearly, most of us, we're not rich doing this right now. However, that could come, hopefully. However, right now, what we're really focusing on is to make sure that our readers get an opportunity to learn about our stories. These are stories that are now being banned. These are stories that are now being mistold. We are here to talk to you about why it's important that we fight hard against those things, so that the Black experience is put on center stage and that people can learn about our lives, not because we're looking for a handout or we're trying to be victims, but because we're trying to help heal our own communities. So thank you so much for being with us. Jerome or JL, talk to us about who you are while you write.
I don't even know who I am, and that's why I write, and that's as distilled as I could get for you right now. So I'm an autistic author. Some things are challenging, but some things come out in a beautiful way. I recently dropped a documentary called "A White Man Walks into a Barbershop." It's the director and I traveled the United States of America and went into Black-owned barbershops to have discussions about everyday life, race, just whatever came to the forefront. And it inspired me to a great degree because I'm biracial, and genetic mirroring has always been an issue for me, obviously. As we sit in this Brady Bunch, the Black Brady Bunch, and then there's Greg in the middle of the screen. I didn't discover who I was until about 7 years ago, when I discovered that my mother had been passing. And the trauma that she endured as a child, as an orphan, because her daddy was sent to prison for having babies with a white woman. She was then warned out of her state at 12 because they didn't want the Black children going to school with the white children. This kind of trauma endured my mother and weighed on her and oppressed her to the point where she had to hide who she was, because she had, I guess, the luck to be able to pass. Her brother could not pass, and his life turned out drastically different. When I started drilling down on the inciting evidence that started my journey, my mom had 3 birth certificates registered at the town hall where she was born. She'd raised me to believe that I was Sicilian. My father played along with it. And as I started drilling down, interviewing people, pulling what little records there are, I saw a drastically different story that involved the KKK, rape, the Catholic Church, rape, murders, the murder of my mother's family, including her father, more rape by white men on the Black women of my mother's family. And when I brought this evidence forth to my mother, she had no idea why she was left alone, and her brother. They just figured that they weren't loved and they weren't wanted. The last words my mother said to me before she passed in 2020 was, "Would you please write my story for me?" Mm-hmm. And she stood up in front of the community for the first time 1 year before her death and admitted to them as being a Black woman. I can't tell you, I'm still struggling to hold back the tears every time I tell that story, because of everything that she endured. These stories need to be told. If I told you that this happened in the whitest state in the United States of America, in Vermont, things become kind of clear. Vermont is every bit the Deep South as the Deep South was. And the title of my upcoming manuscript is Deep North.
Excellent. We're going to get to, because I really want to hear about your, a white man walks into a barbershop. That's deep for all you guys, all the men out there. I know barbershop talk is very sacred. And I want to hear about that. But I want to stop and go to the story about your mother. Did your mother ever say to you why she felt she needed to pass? I mean, we know why people choose that, but did she ever say to you specifically why she wanted to pass?
It's a great question. Yeah, she did. After I brought everything to her whole story, she didn't even remember what her father looked like. That picture you see behind me is her father. It's the only photo in existence of him, and it's his mugshot. I had to get a psychic medium lead me to this mugshot. And my grandfather came to me in my sleep and told me exactly what to look for. She told me that she had to pass to keep herself safe and to keep me safe. Now, granted, I was born in New Jersey. I was born in New Brunswick. I mean, New Brunswick is more black than it is white. And I wasn't raised as and through any particular lens. I mean, we hung out with everybody in that town. It was very chill. It was very, we all shared. We all spent the night at each other's houses, things like that. So, but knowing who I am and how I present physically, I knew that, my friends of color had a lot more challenges than I could ever imagine. And then, fast forward to I'm 55 years old. So I was about 48 when I made the discovery. And I realized that the guns and everything else were focused on my mother. That really forced me to see a different perspective of myself and of my mother. Now, had I been born in Vermont, my life might have been a lot different than it was in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Because, those small towns and those little country hollows, everybody knows, who you are, what you are, and what that 1 drop, 2 drop, whatever represents to them in their minds is kind of scary because there ain't no place to run. There ain't no place to hide.
Well, then we're definitely going to get to your story. This is so amazing. I am so interested in learning more about you. So thank you so much for being here with us today. Rodney,
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about yourself and your work, and why do you write?
Okay, well, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. I started off as a Navy veteran, father of 2, had to raise both of them pretty much all on my own. And I was born and raised in Akron, Ohio. I've always been able to see opportunity when it was right there in front of me. And one day somebody came and told me about LeBron, and I went to see him play. I started a media company that night. Didn't know anything about media or anything like that. Had a little tiny camera and covered him. We actually still cover him sometime. And then I got lucky to catch Obama when he was running for office the first time. Went down and talked to his people, got on the White House media list and covered him all 8 years of his presidency. And so I've always wanted to show Black people in our community in a positive light, because we never see that. We always see the negative. So I always focus opposite. And by doing that, I got an email one day from a company called OpenAI. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but they were doing testing on their new AI system back in November. And they wanted people from around the world to kind of test it out and, go in and see all the bugs that it had and everything else. So I did a first book that was kind of like an introduction to AI because people are terrified of it. And then my second book, the one that I just published, it's called Echoes from the Past. And what I did, because they had a new system came out, which is called GPT-4, which is what everybody knows now. And it was amazing, but it was kind of scary. And that's why everybody's scared of AI. So what I did is I wanted to see how powerful it was. So I did an experiment and I wanted to address 2 things. I wanted to address AI, but I also wanted to address Black history, because we have a lot of people in our history that we were never taught about, and a lot of people don't search it out. So what I did is I've always had questions to ask Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or Ida B. Wells. So what I did is I did an experiment and I wanted to see how close AI could kind of interpret these people's personalities and then answer the questions that I had for them, you know. So I did a whole book of that. And then once I did that, I wanted to be able to get it into the school system, you know, so kids could find out about some of these people that we don't find out about, you know. And I kind of felt bad because when I did Ida B. Wells, all I knew is she was on some kind of money. That's all I knew about her. And then, of course, I had to do research to make sure it was going to be on point. But when I found out about her, I found out how much of a dog she was. She was just a straight dog fighter, wasn't going to put up with nothing. And this is something that we need to know about, you know. So I put it all in a book, put it out. Right now, we got a couple school systems that's picking up the book. And I think that we as Black people, we go on what everybody say instead of looking into it ourselves. And we're always missing out. You know, when I run across Black people, when I mention AI, they're, ooh, you know, and they're terrified of it. And I was like, you know, first of all, whatever they introduce, it's gonna happen. You
Absolutely.
know? So because it's gonna happen, you might as well use it to your favor right now.
Well, I think you're going to get a lot of questions about AI. I have a PR firm. And so I was one of my clients, we were doing a workshop or a little podcast about AI, and I was just so against it. I'm not going to use it. I mean, as a writer, I don't want anybody using my information. I don't want to see AI get credit for work that it did not create, copyright information. But anyway, I started to use it more to help with the flow of some of my press releases, and it was just dynamic. So I'm with you. I love technology, and I'm glad that we have someone on here who's willing to talk about something as futuristic. It's happening now, but it's something that we're still getting our mind around. So thank you so much for being with us. This is great. And you've got a couple of questions that came in, so we'll definitely get to those as well. Chyna, introduce yourself. You're muted.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chyna T. I write in the urban contemporary, children's, as well as self-help genres. I started writing because it was actually a natural talent for me in grade school. So I just happened to take it to college. I went to Florida A&M, wrote for the newspaper there, came out of that, continued writing for magazines and other distributions. And then I first received my first hybrid publishing back in 2015. And so I've been going since. I'm also a certified coach, life coach. So I also create books, self-help books geared towards healing and building up, especially African Americans, because I feel like we're so far behind that we're not where we need to be, because a lot of healing needs to be done before we can build those foundations for us to be solidly standing on and passing down to other generations. I also write books on small business development and business credit, especially helping more Black African American business owners learn how to tap into the business credit as opposed to using their own money, which takes away from their household when they do that. Then I also have created a series, an indie book fair series, where I host book fairs. The home city is Orlando, but I'm starting to take it on tour and go to different places. These book fairs are geared towards independent authors, self-published authors who are looking to build their readership by selling more hard copies to new readers who may not have known that they were an author. So that's going very well. And my second book fair is actually tomorrow here in Orlando during the Florida Classic Weekend. I'm also in the works of creating a literary app, which I've already, got it trademarked and copyrighted, and it's called Literary Connect. And it's going to help aspiring African-American authors who are struggling to showcase their work and receive valuable feedback, as well as representation from literary agents, be able to connect them to those resources so that it's a lot easier for them to be able to navigate in the world of being an author, especially a goal of many authors, self-published and hybrid published, is to be, at least have one traditional published at one time in their career. So just being able to help create that app and being able to procure the resources to be able to make that transition happen for those new authors and current authors as well. And so that is who I am.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chyna T, for being with us. Let's get into this conversation. There's already so many questions that have come in. So for the writers on the screen, if you have another device, you can go in and take a look. You can definitely respond to some of those questions. But I just want two of you to tell me, why is it important that we continue to write? Just put your hand up. Let me know. Chyna T, tell me, why is it important that we can continue to write, and give it to us clearly? Do it, as Rodney say about Ida B. Wells, she was a dog, right? She was going hard over the things that she was passionate about. Get passionate and explain to me why it's important that we need to continue to write these books.
We have to continue to write because we need a louder voice in our community. But we also have to get people back to reading, and not just reading for education, reading for pleasure, because you can always read to learn, but when you read for pleasure, you grasp more. I feel like the comprehension is more. So when we got out of the mood to read for pleasure, and then we have an influx of all these new writers, it shows us that we have to get back to everybody reading so that we can tell our stories from different points of view. It's very important that we can put our community in the light that it needs to be in, as opposed to what others think of us, so that others can learn more, other races and cultures can learn more about us, but because so our own culture and our own people can see exactly what we're capable of. Just looking at this panel, all of you write from different genres, different areas, different backgrounds. And so you're bringing histories and truths to a book that somebody may not have known otherwise, that are not already in a lot of books that are out here. So without your truths, we don't know about what Jerome's mom went through. We don't know about what Cecly was going through. We don't know about the cultures and things of that nature until they tell us, because what we have so far may not be going in depth as to what they're able to tell us now. So it's important that we keep writing so that we can keep getting our voice out there and be able to tell the stories from our point of view, so we can put us in a better light, and again, get everybody back to reading for pleasure, so that we can comprehend more and be able to teach our children to start reading as well.
Excellent. Anybody else? Just quickly.
I want to endorse what Chyna has said. I think we need to continue to write, because by doing so, it preserves our cultural identity. And representation matters. It matters to that little child in Grenada who wants to see Grenada mentioned in the book, so that he can feel that he belongs to this part, to the world of literature. Our voices are marginalized because of the gatekeepers. So we have to continue to write and publish our work, so that our work can serve as a voice for those who may be underrepresented, and just by addressing the social issues, or shedding light on aspects of our culture that are historical injustices. So yes, we continue to write so that we can be part of the global dialogue. Far too often, again, literature is a powerful medium for fostering cross-cultural understanding. And by sharing our unique stories, as Chyna has said, we contribute to the global dialogue, promoting empathy and breaking down cultural barriers.
Excellent. You hit it. Ms. Kai, I know you had your hand up. What do you have to say about this? Why do we need to continue to write? Why is it important?
Because if we don't tell the story, the story will never be told. Even now, they're trying to wipe our stories and history from the record. They fear the truth because they don't want the injustices that have been visited upon us to be amplified, as it shines a light on the evil within. And make no mistake, what has been done and continues to be done is because so many have not been educated on true history. It's only their history. So now that we're speaking out and sharing our family stories, our stories, whether in fiction, nonfiction, now people are questioning, wait a minute, we weren't taught that in school. We weren't told Black history. We were only told this sliver of it, and they kind of glaze over everything else. And now they're trying to rewrite certain words in textbooks and to kind of gloss it over, or how can I say it, dumb it down, or make it where they don't feel bad about what their ancestors have done to people all over the world. And it isn't just here in America. I mean, it's also, you know, all over the African diaspora. So if we don't tell the story, no one's going to tell it for us.
Excellent. This Timothy said, louder voices preserve cultural identity and shine the light. If we don't tell it, it won't be told. I love that. I'm inspired by the unknown. We always hear there is an unknown audience awaiting our work. Unknown. Everything about, to me, the Black culture becomes this unknown, dark continent, all these negative words. I was watching Tyler Perry's documentary yesterday, and he was saying when he started to do movies and wanted them to go to Hollywood, of course, try to get, you know, a major a major label to carry it, those movies, or directors to be a part of it. Someone said to him, Black people don't pay to watch movies. There's always this, Black people don't, you know, we don't read, we don't do this, we don't do that. These assumptions that are made about us, and that controls the narrative. And that's why it's so important that we take back that narrative so that we can demystify and correct these ideas about who we are as a people. We do read, we do love books, we do have a story to tell. It is not all negative, but it is about healing the community. And there's nothing wrong with that. So Jerome, I think you had your hand up. Did you want to add to it?
Just very quickly, we need to brown up the whitewashing. And that's, you know, that is completely evident in the state of Vermont. The white paint has just blocked out the what little history there was of us. And getting the stories out, you know, black authors have a very difficult time publishing in traditional publishing houses because the pipeline is white. 99% of the executives are white, the editors, all the way down, even to the agents. I'm not discrediting any of them at all. It's just traditionally we're not in that pipeline. And so, you know, what happens when a white editor gets a hold of a manuscript from a Black person? Does the voice begin to change? Does the narrative begin to change? Do we start making, you know, edits where we feel that are the nexus of the stories that we're trying to tell? So I think it's really important that more of us write and more of us be a part of the process as well. And that way we can get a truer form of our truths out there.
You know, I've interviewed hundreds of authors, self-published, vanity published, traditional best-selling authors, the whole lot. I've interviewed them. And what I hear consistently is what you said. First, a couple of facts. One is that the gatekeepers are still there. You know, some of us don't have those experiences. Some people say, well, I didn't have that experience the majority of us have the experience of having to find ourselves up against people who are there to get our books to the marketplace, but want to change the narrative, want to create a narrative that they think is going to be appealing to the mainstream reader, because the assumption is that the mainstream reader are white readers. But there are studies out there that show that white readers want to read about our stories, but the publishers are still convinced that's not the case. The editors are still convinced that's not the case. And there are still a lot of editors, absolutely. The gatekeepers are still in place. They are still more white books are published. I read a study that between, I think, the 1960s and 2018, less than 10% of the books that were published by Black writers. Less than 10%. Think about that. That's a long time. Why are we still taking such a small percentage? Why are so few of our books still getting out through these traditional publishers? And that's why a lot of us are self-publishing. We self-publish because it's so hard to get these major publishing deals. Anybody want to talk a little bit about that very quickly, about these gatekeepers and what do they rob the world of when they change our stories? When they say that no one understands our dialect, when they say no one wants to hear a story about someone growing up, you know, in a Black community, having an experience that's different from what they consider the mainstream readers want to hear about. Anybody want to talk a little bit about that? Rodney, we haven't heard from you. What do you say?
Oh, you know, this will come right down my alley, don't you? You know, I'm all about history, you know, and what we go through today, if we look back at our history, they had more gatekeepers than we did, than we'll ever have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you look at the Underground Railroad and their gatekeeper, you know, you start seeing the reason the Underground Railroad was successful was because they couldn't depend on or even go up toward that type of gatekeeper because they would get killed. So we just get held down because we go up against the gatekeeper. They would get killed. But what they had that we never seem to understand is they had their own system that went around that. You know, I was a little upset because I never Googled how many Black people there are in America. And when I found out about it, I was upset. You know, like last time I checked, it was 41 million people, Black people. And with 41 million Black people, you don't need no gatekeeper. What you need is somebody that has the power, or we all come together with our money and have our own publishing. That way you're not being stopped by anybody because you control your own. You know, so I always have a problem with that because I understand that when you're trying to get help from a group of people that would rather see you dead, then, you know, that's probably your problem with keep going to them. You know, so
Absolutely. And when you talk about doing it yourself, that's what we're doing here. The Black Writers Workspace is something I started back in 2020, 16,000 people. Now 16,000 of us come together and talk about writing. You know, I have an online bookstore. I have a book. I have just started publishing books now under Jackson Publishing Group. Chyna T is hosting book fairs. You know, Miss Kai is being a coach. We have all the different things that we need to do it ourselves. And then let's not even talk about Brother Now Born, who did this while behind bars. Okay. This brother is an inspiration because he was like, I'm going to tell my story. And whatever I've got to do, I'm going to tell it. So when you look at what you're saying is absolutely true. We talk about the gatekeepers. Yes, they're there. And there's a lot of money behind it. There's a lot of money that they can pour into these books. But if we pull our money together, if we pull our resources together, if we tap into UJAMA, you know, cooperative economics, and really start to work together, we can do a lot. So I love that point that you make. That's a wonderful point. Some more things are coming in. I'm going to take a look at those. But let's go on to our next question, which is about, once again, every story matters. I'm sorry, Ms. Kai?
Yes, I just want to chime in briefly on the gatekeepers.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the people that are at the traditional publishing houses, they hire these young interns, and these are young white college students that come in that have no life experience, that really don't have any experience with Black culture or Black literature. So they're part of the gatekeeper system. But see, I don't think people realize the gatekeepers are also on the bookstore level too. They decide what gets on the shelves. Right before my last client's book released, we received a note that even though the book is through a major publishing house, they were not going to put it on the shelves because, you know, they were into right wing or fourth wing or whatever that is. And they're putting those on the shelves, the things that are instantly going to make money, but it's also catering to a mainstream white audience. Whereas My client's book was in the same genre from the same publishing house, but yet it wasn't going to make it on the shelves, along with another woman who wrote, Black woman who wrote in that same genre from the same publishing house. So the gatekeepers are not just at the publishing level, the acquisition level, it's on the bookstore level as well.
And we've seen where there are studies, or there was the social media publishing paid me. I don't know if anybody paid attention to that initiative where they had Black authors, best-selling authors, and white best-selling authors actually disclose what type of advances they received. And what they found was that some of the Black writers who were more successful than white writers were getting so much less money for an advance, 100,000 in some situations versus 800,000, but yet their books were doing better. So people coming out and being honest about what's happening with these gatekeepers behind closed doors. Like you said, you've got interns making decisions. You've got bookstores not putting certain books out because of their own ideology or their own ideas around different topics. These things are hindering us, but we're magical people. So we can make it happen. We can make things happen that we want to make happen if we could work together and get it done. So Chyna T, you had something very quickly, and then we're going to get into our next area.
And I definitely agree with the acquisition that Ms. Kai stated. But I also want to add to that I think that we just need to open more bookstores. We need to have more bookstores owned by us so that we don't have to worry about those gatekeepers and those people who are saying what doesn't go on shelves. I had a bookstore in Tallahassee, Florida, which I opened that was, catered towards all Black authors in that store. And I thought it was very rewarding to have that, and I think that we just need to have more of that because we have the capabilities to, but sometimes we don't. We'll do some things, but when we'll cripple ourselves because we won't go a lot further. And we have to have more ways to have us represented on shelves, and we cannot rely on stores that are not managed or owned by us. We have to go out there and get our own stuff, so we're not fighting with the acquisition and those people who are deciding on what go on shelves.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for that whole round. Let's talk now about what it is that you're feeling when you're writing your book. What is it that you want the world to know? So the question is, Black literature often catalyzes how writers express pain, trauma, and our sacrifices. What have you learned, everybody, in your writing experiences that have helped you to connect with these feelings and share them with the world with no shame and no fear? And this kind of, in a way, tacks back to this idea of the gatekeepers and telling our stories, because a lot of us who are trying to get these traditional deals, we're having to write our truth in a way that is going to be acceptable by these gatekeepers, right? A lot of us do that, especially people who have big advances. You're not gonna, if they say this character can't, your character Tyrone can't make this cut because the people we know who read books aren't going to understand that character, or you can't speak on that side of town because we have different ideas of what that side of town is about. Those types of things. Let's talk about your truth and your authenticity and what it is that you're hoping people can connect with in what you write. And then let's start with you, Cecly. Talk to us about it.
Yeah. Well, writing what I'm feeling, I found that authenticity is empowering. It helps to build bridges with the reader. I want to draw a reference here to a book that Kennedy Rand has written called Hookshot. That book, I don't know if anybody here has read the book, but that book, there were topics that she explored in that novel that immediately connected with me as a Black woman. And I have recommended that book to all my students because her writing explores aspects of our culture that a white author would go into St. Lucia and make fun of. But a Black author understands us. So when there is a cleansing through our creativity that makes us as Black authors feel acceptable within our community. community writing, expressing our pain and our trauma, helps me to find solidarity. I want to refer to the US Black Lives Matter movement for just a minute, because outside of the diasporic community, that Black Lives Matter movement didn't make sense to a lot of people. So that expressing what we feel in words gives us a sense of community, gives us the African person of African descent or East Indian descent in the Caribbean feels the same hurt and pain that the person of African descent, East Indian descent, or the Browns or the Blacks feel in the US. And that is what writing through our pain does to us as a community. It fosters that we are all one blood kind of thing, you know?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So we have to tell that truth. Now, Lauren, talk to us about what you were looking to do with telling your story, you know, incarcerated, and the works that you've put out after that, because I know you're writing beyond that topic. But talk to us a little bit about that pain that you didn't need censored. Because what would have done to censor that pain? What would have done if your story had to go through to people who were going to, you know, take out anything that was going to make it unauthentic? Tell us about that experience for you writing that truth.
Okay, so initially I did submit my manuscript to like multiple urban fiction publishers, but I didn't really get good responses. So I just decided, you know, get an LLC and do everything on my own. I actually got consultation from a friend who was an author, Alfred Adams. You know, he gave me some good advice. So he said I should do that instead of trying to get published by a major publishing house. So that's what I did. As far as me expressing my feelings and stuff like that in my books, I don't really know if that's what it was about. It might have been more about just like a pastime and just being creative in some way. But towards my third book, though, that's when I started wanting to express who I am and tell my story, because I started realizing how important it was to write down my history from my own mouth versus my posterity or my children having to say, you know, hear it from somebody else saying that they knew me, you know. So I just feel like anybody that's important, they feel like they're important, they should write their history for people to read it from their own mouth, so it won't be no, you know, misconceptions. You heard it from me, you know.
Is that what the book ban is for everybody? Is that what the book ban is going to do? Is it going to make writers feel like what we write has to fit into a particular mold in order to get into these major mainstream veins and get out to the people? Is that the goal of the book ban? What is the goal of the book ban? Because I sometimes struggle with that. Jerome?
I view it as another form of enslavement of the mind, and forcing us to work within the guardrails of the gatekeepers. Moving forward, I mean, I try and look at it from a positive aspect. If my book gets banned, I think where you look at the dense populations are centered around metropolitan areas, and we tend to be more progressive in our thinking, it might drive book sales up. You know, when you look at the areas that tend to do the book banning, it's in more rural areas and obviously less progressive thinking for the most part. Our book sales might not be high to begin with. Book bans stink. If we don't have the freedom to express ourselves, what's the point? What's the point of the United States of America? Because that seems to be the one thing that we have that makes us stand out above and beyond every other other nation that they want us to believe anyway. But the controls are still there, and it does limit us through those filters that we've been discussing. But I think the book ban is just another enslavement of the mind. Even as as I've written my manuscript out, and I go back for the edits and the rewrites, I sit there and I question myself: is this acceptable? And I shouldn't have to work from that standpoint. And so that's me as a person. That's not something that's for everybody else, but that's me as a person. So I think the book ban is just something there to knock us back down.
Did everybody
we
vote? I'm sorry.
in our documentary, we cover the whole Mark Twain book. We sat down with an editor out of Alabama, who had to republish the book and delete all the offensive words. And he himself said, I couldn't sell my book. I couldn't sell the book to classrooms otherwise, because I had too many parents and teachers coming to me saying they will not put this book in their classroom if you include these words in there.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Everybody on the screen, just very quickly.
I book bans.
Wait a minute, hold on, 1 second. 1 second. I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Can everybody on the screen tell me, did you have any reservations about writing any of your stories? Just quick, yes or no. Chyna T?
No.
None. Rodney?
Yeah, I did.
Jerome, you said you did as well?
I did as well.
Now, Born?
I don't think so.
No.
Maybe
No
my last
reservation?
one, but I can't really think of any. No.
Ms.
I
Kai?
think I was pretty comfortable writing it.
Not at all. I had
I did.
That's great. I had reservations with mine as well. So I know that feeling. It wasn't about worrying about the mainstream, but I had other things to consider family, story being told, how people are going to accept it. That's why I asked that question, because it is a part of the writing process that we have to go through, is getting to a place of being authentic. And so that's very important. Sian, you had a question?
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to mention, words, for instance, when you write dual timeline historical fiction, words and phrases that were part of the diction and lexicon of 1940-41 colonial Caribbean are no longer considered acceptable in 2021. But to be authentic and to keep with the timeline of the story, you need to use those words. There's no getting around them. But interestingly, a lot of the present day readers didn't know some of the words, and they were asking what they meant. One of the problems, though, is gatekeepers are not just with the other, for want of a better word, the other set of people. There are gatekeepers within our own community who tend not to want us to write certain stories, who tend not to want us to talk or to write certain stories or to have these books on the shelf. Recently in Trinidad, we had a situation where a bookstore bought in a particular book, and there was an uproar because the book dealt with same-sex relationships, and they were demanding, a percentage of the population was demanding that this book be taken off the shelf. But within our little writer communities, there are cliques. I call them the literati in the Caribbean, who feel that only a certain type of person is allowed to write novels and to move up the scale in the Caribbean. So we have little silos of Caribbean authors who belong to this group and who belong to that group. And with among ourselves, there are gatekeepers who say, okay, oh, she wrote a book. We're not going to consider that a published book.
We can become our own worst enemies. I mean, we had a whole session on Pen Posse a couple of months ago about the things that we've had to unlearn in our own culture as writers to get to a place where we can be authentic. And a lot of that are just some of the cultural things that are out there that we perpetuate as Black people. You know, why everything has to be so negative? Why do we have to read about, you know, why Black stories always about drugs? I've heard it all. And like I said last night, watching Tyler, he said Black people don't go to the movies, all these things. And these were things that are said within our culture, not just outside the culture, as you mentioned. And so we have to deal, there are so many layers of things that we have to get up, you know, overcome to get to a place where we can put out our most authentic work. So
the Prime Minister Trinidad and Tobago said that Trinidadians don't read. And then he went on and he penned a book.
Well, Rodney, you had some comments on it?
Yeah. I know with me, I had to back off of some of the questions that I really, really wanted to ask. And the thing is, you know, you're not talking to these people because they dead, but the AI could gather as much information as it could about this person. So in a sense, you could ask all the questions that you wanted to ask. So it's like the O.W. Gurley, you know, with Black Wall Street. And there's a lot of questions that I wanted to ask, but I thought about, you know, if I really, really went in, this book wouldn't sell. You know, so I had to make it where, and this is so sad, but I had to make it where white people would actually buy the book too, because we don't seem to support each other. So in the result of that, I talked to Black school systems with a Black school board, with a Black superintendent, and won't get a call back, but then talk to a white school board with a white school, and not only do I get a call back, they say this is outstanding, this is unbelievable, and they buy a whole bunch of copies. You know, so even with me backing off of some of the questions that I wanted to ask, I still don't get the backing that I really wanted to get from our people. So that's all I want to say.
And we have to do that. I mean, we talk about doing it ourselves, going around the gatekeepers. We don't need them. We can do this ourselves. I do believe that. I believe we can make things happen. We can write good books. We can publish them. We can make money off them. We can work together as a community. But I'm with you too, Rodney. I've seen that happen multiple times in my own experience as a writer, where I cannot get my own community to back what I was doing. So that is a big part of it. So this is great. Every story matters is what we're talking about here. Every story matters. It doesn't matter who is the writer, what the story is. It is important that it gets out into the world. We're going to move on to controlling the narrative. So any other comments? I want to put this up here from Sean. He said, in my opinion, the objective of the book ban is to suppress true knowledge. With knowledge comes illumination. With illumination comes change. Those who have the narrative don't want that change. Anybody want to just very quickly respond to that comment? Can they handle the change? Can they handle the truth, Jerome?
Yes. Time and time again, humans have proven that if they scrape their knee, their skin will heal. It's in our nature. What's not in our nature is to suppress those things and not allow our bodies to heal. Our minds are a part of our bodies, and we can get through every single thing that life throws at us if we allow it to. I have all faith in that.
Absolutely. When you were doing your documentary on a black man, I mean, a white man enters a black barbershop, tell us, what did you learn about the black culture that is, I won't say hidden within those very sacred conversations, but that's in that sacred world of the barbershop, and infused in those conversations that you did know. Was there anything that you didn't know that came out of those sacred conversations in the barbershop that really shocked you?
Thank you for that question. It's thoughtful. Yes, yes and no. So the director and I, the director's name is Kyle Schickner. He is the subject. So I was the executive producer. And so there were times where, the crew, who was all white, got really nervous. The director even got really nervous, and he's like this. He's Michael Moore is the best way that I could put it. Anybody who's familiar with Michael Moore, he's super liberal. He's super. He's just all about love, and even he got nervous at one point, and I was just sitting there. I was kind of laughing. I'm like, why are people getting nervous? And that was down in Alabama. And it was we were just outside of Selma. And then once we got in the barbershop, it was like, it was all love. I mean, it's just a bunch of guys sitting around talking, and it all was all fantastic, right? We get down to Meridian, Mississippi, where we had the world premiere. And things, not the things that were said, but the things that I noticed. I noticed that America, the deeper you go, is still very segregated.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an eye-opening thing for me to see, because I went to the University of Alabama for college, and Tuscaloosa was segregated. I mean, we have black clubs, we have white clubs. If you were an athlete, you could walk in both spaces, no problem. Meridian looks like it's a post-World War II bombing area. The buildings are crumbling in the black neighborhoods. They told me there's still places that they can't walk after dark. And I sat there and I'm like, I'm sitting, it was 2022, 2021. And I'm going, this still exists. This fear exists. There are those invisible lines that can't be crossed. How can I change that? Not just me, how can we change that? Because it's going to take a we, not a me, to change it. And I don't know how we can get out of the old minds to create new ones, but the only place it's going to begin are the schools and the books and the stories that we tell. It's the only way that progress is going to be had in those hard to reach places.
Yeah.
We went up to Minneapolis, into a barbershop, and words mattered. There was this tricky point. The director was told that he said something, said he used the word "you people," but he didn't say "you people." We were all standing there, but he got very nervous, and then he started apologizing, saying, "I probably did say that, and I'm sorry." But when we went back to the videotape, he didn't say that. So it was a matter of the cognitive dissonance, because the gentleman, the owner of the barbershop, was taking notes. But it wound up probably being the most rewarding of all of our visits because of that. Watching the director sweat, it was beautiful.
It was. I didn't know that you went to the University of Alabama. I'm a 96 grad, so
all right.
I didn't know that. Right. Great. That's great. So let's did Ms. Kai, you had your hand up? You had something you want to say? Okay. Let's move on to this idea of controlling the narrative. We've been talking about it anyway, but I wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper into that, and something you said, Jerome, this fear. And I think that is a part of what this book ban is also about too. There is a fear of our stories getting out there. There is a fear that people are going to get uncomfortable. But being uncomfortable is okay. I mean, we've had to live a whole existence of uncomfortable in many ways as Black people. So it bothers me that you have parents saying, I don't want my kid to know about these things, same-sex marriage and the pain of of slavery and all these things, and don't use these terms. These things are degrading. Our kids are suffering because they're hearing these terms. We are trying to protect people and keep them from being uncomfortable. That's what this book ban, part of it is about, is making people uncomfortable. But our stories are going to make people uncomfortable, because the reality is that we came to this land, in the bottom of a ship. We didn't volunteer to come here. So our whole existence in this country and on this continent is uncomfortability. You understand what I'm saying? We did not choose to come here, and we're here, and we have made lemonade out of lemons, and we are magical people. We've overcome so many things, but our existence has been uncomfortable, right? So now that we're trying to protect everybody else from being uncomfortable about these stories, it does drive me a little mad. But that's what made me come up with this question about Black joy versus Black rage. Anybody want to tell me, what is Black joy? What is Black joy? What is the cultural thing behind Black joy? Anybody? Throw your hand up. Go for it. Quickly. No idea what it is?
Resilience and celebration. That question had me laughing, because I like to explore the positive of both options. Black joy is resilience and celebration. It is a triumph and the beauty that is found in everyday moments. Focusing on Black joy enables me to see the positivity within our communities, whether it's a community in Florida that people think are, for want of a better word, ghetto community. Like sometimes when I take the train, when I visit Florida and I take the train, I'll be passing through certain parts and the train stops and somebody comes on. I am Black. The guy who comes in is Black. And there's a fear because of what the narrative that was told to us. When I say us, visitors who come up to Florida, these parts of Florida are not for you to visit. So when the train comes through and this person comes on, he looks just like you, but there's an automatic fear that goes up. I don't know if any of you know what I mean, but but still we see a different type of community spirit in those communities, and that is what Black joy means to me. The way those communities come together. Yeah.
Black joy versus Black fear. Chyna T, what you got? What do you say? What is Black joy?
Black joy is overall healing. Being able to be in a place of healing, being able to be amongst our people and all of the things that we have suffered, that we have learned from, but we have healed from, so that we can build better. Just having healed conversations, healed outcomes. Just, I think Black joy all has to do with literally self-apologizing, forgiving self, accepting that apology, and healing.
Excellent. I hear that coach. That coach coming out of you down there. I see you. Rodney, what you got? What is Black joy?
Yeah.
Black joy to me is this forum. Being able to see some Black people wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday and spend their time talking about something positive. Black joy is seeing a young brother that has been in the penitentiary that could have given up, or could have came back out and did the same thing or better of what he was doing, but he's here with us. Sometimes Black joy is like the small things of seeing Black people come together, and positive about it, and, acknowledge all the things that we've been through and say, I'm proud of you. To me, that's Black joy. Rarely do you hear people say, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of everybody on the screen. I'm proud that you accepted me to be part of this forum. So to me, Black Joy is coming together, doing something positive, and supporting each other.
Absolutely. All of you are Black Joy. Black Joy, anybody else? Anything now born?
All right. So when I think Black Joy, I just think about like the satisfaction I feel when I just know how dope Black people are and how the whole world knows it. And so many people just hate on us and all that because of it. I just feel satisfaction from that. So that's Black Joy to me. You know what I mean? Just knowing we the, sugar, honey, iced tea,
Look, I like that. Sugar, honey, iced tea. That's right. That's right. I love it. And Stephanie, on the screen, she says, Black Joy is the songs of our soul. I love that. That's beautiful. I just saw a hand go up. Whose hand was that? Okay, Jerome.
Well, I'm really digging on what Miss Freeman wrote. So you can go along with that, and then I can follow up if you like.
No, I'm done.
Oh, okay.
Tell me what you got.
As Rodney said, for me, it's this right here. To be a part of something. It's unique and special. That's lifting up who we are and who we aspire to be. My first experience was meeting my biological family for the first time, because I was nervous. I didn't know if I was going to be accepted. They had no idea we even existed. And my family, they had hightailed it out of Castleton, Vermont, and moved down to Saratoga Springs right around 1900. So mom was the very last Black person left in that town. So there was just nobody to connect with. It wasn't until that very day in 2018 that we met them that I was able to plug in and as a member. Because everything else happened in the abstract, right? In my head. And, when I made these discoveries, I was like, how am I ever going to be a part of a world that I know that I've never been a part of at this age? And, when I walked on up, I had 30 families just embrace, hug me, hug my mother, tell us that they loved us. And we just talked, we danced, we ate, we broke bread, we spent so much time together. It just filled me with the breath that I needed inside of my lungs in order to survive and be who I was always meant to be, but never was allowed to be.
That's beautiful. And I wrote an article about Black Joy, and that was one of the things that I talked about was these cultural things that are so unique to being a Black person. For me, it's playing spades, with my cousins and having fun and it's watching comedians like Eddie Murphy growing up. It was just things that were so culturally about who I was as a Black person, but also things that I saw other people like me do. It's having that hard day at work, but then getting with your girlfriends and they all like, it's going to be okay. And let's go out and let's enjoy ourselves. Those cultural fine-tuned things that really represent who I am as a woman, as a Black woman. That's Black joy to me. And it's, it doesn't negate any other joy. It's like, it just is about the culture and what we bring and that love and, electric slide at a wedding reception. It's those things that people feel connected to because it's something that we do so culturally. And so that's so beautiful. Now let's shift gears to talk a little bit about this Black rage and what that is. And some of us are writing in that world of Black rage. And it's not about hatred. It's not about hatred of self or hatred of others. It's just rage that comes from a people who have suffered, And a lot of our work, no matter how much we want it all to be positive, there is a lining sometimes that is, characters or scenes that are set in a world that can be considered something that's founded on what is Black rage. And Black rage is, to me, things that are ignited through segregation and discrimination and unfairness and inequities. And, talk to us about Black rage, and are you connecting with that in your work, and how? Anybody?
I connect with Black rage through my dual timeline historical fiction. We don't have a racial issue per se here in Trinidad, but we do have a colorism issue. So we found that, I found that by writing, it helps with part political activism. It helps with my writing is part political activism, part social justice advocacy, part healing, part a demand for recognition, part artistic expression, because within all of those facets, I express what, by and large, has been suppressed through the teachings, our educational system, that does not prepare us to be anything but worker bees. So that my writing expresses my rage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it for me. That's just how I process all this anger I feel. When
Excellent.
Yes.
I like that. Excellent. Anybody else? Jerome?
That was the point of view that I started writing in, and then I realized, well, the world's probably not gonna like the angry guy all the way through. So I had to kind of process it through my writing and express it through a myriad of prisms. And so in order to do that, I had to tap in, and I tapped in, or they tapped into me, into my grandfather, into his brothers and sisters. Their voice became my voice, which became what's on the paper. So the stories will incite rage in many instances, but for me it was about processing those emotions and what happened to my mother, because this book is all about mom. It's moms, and and the arc of me changing, as a person, to go from one narrative to another. I had to change my name, I had to change my identity, I had to change everything to make it all right, straighten it all out. That rage came out in many different forms. It wasn't necessarily anger, it was really just about change that had to happen as a derivative of the rage that was expressed upon my family.
Excellent. Anybody else want to talk about this idea of Black rage? Chyna T, I know you write urban fiction and you write self-help. Is there any rage there as a Black woman that you think really propels these stories for
No,
you?
no, no rage, no, none at all. I write to heal, so I don't have any rage or anything like that. Some of the stories, some of the characters, some of the things they may do may cause, but they are part of social issues. One of my books that I turned into a movie being domestic violence, that right there in itself is a bit of rage, because domestic violence, the topic alone is just an angry topic. But I try not to use any overtone of any type of anger or any type of anything in my writing. I like to separate that, because I like to use my writing as a means of people to separate themselves from whatever they're going through in their life. So I don't put that in my writing. And I just like to write to literally to heal people, so that they're not coming from any point of rage at any time.
And that's exactly what Sheila says here. She said, glad to, I caught a bit of you. I understand Black rage can be issues in a book that heals a community or seals the pain for another to release again. Love that. Miss Kai, any rage? You writing from Black Joy 100%?
I write joy, but I write healing, and I write from pain. But you know what? I think we missed the best part of Stephanie M. Freeman's Black joy is the song of our soul. It is our name carried on breath. Black joy is the whisper of our ancestors, reminding us to dream while awake and the value of walking in our purpose. We are seen, we are loved and appreciated for more than the color of skin. Stardust shimmers in our tears, for there are many. but the wisdom born from the darkest nights lights the path we walk for the ones that follow. Oh my God, that was beautiful. That's on the page where your page, author Michelle D. Jackson and Stephanie Freeman wrote that, and I'm just blown away by that.
It's on the bottom of the screen, guys. If you guys can see it, it's down there. And so, absolutely. I mean, she tackles Black joy so beautifully. I know Stephanie. I know you know Stephanie. Very well written. And we know that this. We all want to. We want to write within the joy realm because we want to heal. But you can also heal by writing the rage, because a lot of us are propelled by the rage. Poverty is violent, abuse is violent. I mean, hunger, I mean, all these things that a lot of us have had to go through, a loss of a parent, not understanding what parents decide to do, being in prison, these things are violent on the soul. So they can also spur a lot of great work. So anybody else? I mean, now born, any rage that propels your work?
No, the first thing I think about when I hear y'all talking about rage is this book I read by Ta-Nehisi Coates called Between the World and Me, where he spoke about how Black people are really powerless and we have a lot of fear, but we transmute that fear into rage against one another, or like just play this gangster tough role that's fake. So like I don't really try to speak from that type of place, because to me that's more emotional. Like it's weaker than just being more intelligent about it and thinking it through and calm, So I don't try to come out like with rage and none of like, you know what I mean? So
Nice. Thank you. Good round, guys. We're going to go into talking about book publishing after we get this last question out that I have just got to hear about, because we had a session a couple of months ago about Black voices in different mediums, including music. So I have a question here, and I hope everybody out there, you will chime in, and then we're going to just talk a little bit about how you publish your book and how you market your book. But for those of you out there with us, thank you so much for just sticking with us. We are an hour and a half in. This time goes by so fast. And then we're gonna, make sure everybody on the screen, if you can stop and if you can, go on and put your contact information, how to get a hold of your book, your website in on the comment. If you can't, drop it in the private chat and I'll put it in the comment for you. So definitely do that. But this question here, before we talk about book publishing, is that Black culture influences various art forms, including mainstream music, movies, books, and visual art. If you could change any of these art forms for the better, ensuring that the Black community is uplifted and empowered, what would it be, and what changes would you make? Any art form.
It definitely would, for me, it definitely would be more changes in the Black music that we did, that's being put out there. They got hidden messages behind them, and they're not hitting messages of love, and they're not hitting messages of healing, they're not hitting messages of bring us all together. There are division messages, and there are more division between the Black male and the Black female than anything. So I think that I would work on these record execs that keep making money off the music that our talent is making and becoming millionaires, but it's not helping our community grow in any form or fashion.
Excellent.
Agreed.
The music.
I agree 100% with what Chyna's saying. I always wonder, sitting in the Caribbean, wondering why aren't these Black millionaires, these athletes, these music makers, these owning publishing houses, recording studios, television stations, why aren't they doing that? And then moving now, building them in communities to help raise the standard and the awareness of Black culture. That for me, sitting in the Caribbean, I remember watching Colin Kaepernick when he was taking the knee, and people were complaining when the NFL. I was saying that these guys make money for these fellas. Why don't they have their own NFL teams, their own NBA teams, that kind of thing? So for me, I would pester, for want of a better word, these millionaire athletes, entertainers, to put more into Black communities so that Black communities can strive. They can create employment. That is what, if I was a millionaire, that is what I would do. And if I could change anything, I would try to change the mindset of these millionaire athletes and entertainers to do more for their community.
Excellent. Anyone else? Anyone else? Chime in. Rodney?
It would be music, definitely music, especially the ones, the music that reaches our younger generation, that's filled with the B's and the H's and the N word and just kind of denigrating women, misogynistic lyrics. That's what I would, the focus of some music when it comes to that, you know, because all music isn't bad. All of any art form isn't bad. It is the intention of it and the delivery of it and how it infects the mind of our youth, especially. You know, I could be driving down the street and there's a car blasting music on one side and blasting music on the other. And if I have my windows down, I hear I'm like, this is what they're filling into their souls and their system and their brains. And then it comes out in their actions with their families and with their significant and insignificant others. So I would say definitely music.
Excellent. Excellent. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would take out the anything that in film or music. I would take out anything that feminizes the Black man. I hate seeing that. I don't like seeing Black men in drag or stuff like that. I don't feel like that's something that we should promote or support, you know, in Black media. You know, I feel like it's not progressive, along with a lot of other things. But that's like one of my pet peeves. I hate seeing that.
Oh,
Wanda, whatever.
100% agree.
All right.
That's interesting. Anybody? Jerome? What would you change?
I echo the whole music industry. I think some things need to shift a little bit towards the misogynism. You know, walking down the street. I live in New York City, so you know, I'm a huge hip hop guy, but I'm old school. I'm PE. I'm all about this, the 70s and 80s Sugar Hill Gang, where you know led right up into it. So what I hear now, you know, I think it's destructive, but there is some truth in there too. You know, so I think the record producers, the industry itself, need to kind of shift what should be saleable. You know, hating on the women and hating on the men, and you know that I think we tend to copy what we hear and what we see on screen, and I think the positive images need to start coming in like a tsunami.
You know, and the music industry is a great example of what happens when we cannot 100% control the narrative. I really believe that if more positive music got more play at the radio stations, that we wouldn't have so much negative music. I believe that most people they want to tell a good story. You know, like for me, I'm a rap hip hop head too. Grew up listening to hip hop my whole life and love it, you know. But when I listen to it now, as much as the beats are just amazing, what they're saying, it does something to my soul. It's like, my goodness, to hear a young woman say the things that she's saying. Now she has a right to say it, but I believe a lot of what we're hearing is trying to appease a group of people who think that is the message that Black communities want to hear. And that's that controlling the narrative. And I feel like if we don't stop it in the publishing world, we're going to run into this time and time again as well, where we're losing our voice because of the gatekeepers, and we have to turn within and support each other and move forward. But if we don't, you know, books are just going to be, you know, I always say this and I get burned for it sometimes, but every book is going to be about a TikToker. It's going to be about an influencer if we don't watch out, because publishing companies are giving book deals to people who got the most followers on social media. So when that's the case, you know, what will the bookshelves look like in 25 years if the entertainers, the athletes, the TikTokers, or the social media influencers are getting the book deals? what happens to Black literature? You know, that's what I'm concerned mostly about. So I love that everybody is talking about the music. I feel the music needs to change too, but I want us to think about what's happening in the music industry and how that's going to have an impact on everything else. But nobody said anything about movies. Is there anything there you would like to see change? Now, Born, tell me about it.
Well, I would like to see more positive Black families like the Cosbys, you know. Like, you know, we don't have enough for that. We got like even our sitcoms be like having profanity and stuff in them now. Like we need more wholesome, you know, something that the babies can watch and not get some negative information from or some influence from. You know, after school specials and all that, you know.
And to add on to that, reality TV, we just gotta, it's all over the network, and it's more profanity, more egregious behaviors. You know, people are learning, they are taking these things serious, they are emulating these things in real life, you know. So reality TV is definitely something that needs to transform. I just feel like if we're gonna do anything from a reality aspect, let's show it in a positive light. Let's not always try to go find the negative images that come from some of these reality shows, and more so around the Black people who are on reality shows, because you get a lot of this on the other reality shows, but I don't watch those reality shows. I watch ours, and I see how what we're displaying to the world, and that needs to be fine-tuned. And we need somebody else that's going, if you're going to create a reality show, you need to just have some standards about us, because it's your show. Just make sure it has standards so that we don't look like raging animals and fools in front of everybody, because everybody's going to be watching. So just at least try to build your platform around some type of decorum for the way we look to the general public.
I 100% agree with that. This is a problem, especially for Black women. If we're on here fighting, you know, saying any and everything, it sends a message, especially to our young people. It sends a message that that's what we're all about. We're angry. We don't get along. That's a troubling image that we leave in the minds of these viewers when we look at this reality TV. And it's not all negative. I'm not saying that, but we do have to pay attention to those things. Great point, Chyna T. All right, guys, let's talk about these books and what are you doing to get published? There are a couple of questions, and I'm going to go back and from the very beginning almost and see if I can get a few of them answered. One of them is from Timothy. He wants to know, how do you choose a publisher and self-publish? What do you recommend? Actually, Rodney, that question was for you when you were talking about AI. Did you self-publish your AI book, Echoes?
Yeah, I self-published.
Okay. And any recommendation on, you know, and everybody quickly tell us, how did you publish your books? Let's start with you at the top. Cecly Ann.
Okay. I actually got a book deal with a publisher from India. I sent the manuscript of my first book, A Galley, to a friend of mine, and he had the book with him while he was playing cricket in India. And it wasn't my first book, but it was the one that was published. India is cricket mad, Caribbean, West Indians are cricket mad. So that book, Kings of the Caribbean, was published by a publisher in India, and it did very well. The other books, the series, Scotland Made a Return, I initially decided I was going to do one self-published book to show my participants in my workshop how to self-publish a book on Amazon. That one book turned into a 10-book series. So that book is self-published. It's thanks to Miss Kai, it did very well in one of her promotions. And I'm hopeful that some of my participants with finished manuscripts can have the opportunity to get their books published by hybrid or traditional publishers. One of the things so that is how I publish my book. One of the things, because we live in the Caribbean and we have limited representation in the publishing industry, Caribbean authors like myself, we do what is called bookmark marketing, where we use QR codes on the back of the bookmarks and we use book covers on the front, so that we give the bookmarks when the cruise ships come. The bookmarks are there. We again, our libraries are small, so that even to purchase, budgets are small, so even to purchase our books is a difficult thing. But authors in my workshop, we are able to use the various e-platforms to get the books into library systems around the Caribbean.
Thank you so much. We're going to have to move on because we've got to give everybody an opportunity to speak. Narramore, how did you publish your books? I think you said they're all self-published.
Yeah, I self-published all three of mine. Yeah.
Okay. Amazon.
Amazon.
Okay.
Well, when I first started publishing, it was through CreateSpace. They closed now, so now it's Kindle Direct Publishing. So I'm old school. My first book was like 10 years ago, something like that.
Mine too. So great. Thank you, Ms. Kai.
Mm-hmm.
I self-published my first two books. I gave away the third book, 50 copies of the third book at Book Expo America, and I landed a book deal with Simon & Schuster. So I'm in hybrid. I'm with traditional publishing house as well as self-published.
Now, you were tell me what process that you like the most. I mean, just tell me quickly the highs and lows of each. Having a book deal versus self-publishing.
Self-publishing gives you the control. Love that. Whereas with traditional publishing, you lose a little bit of the control, but you gain a wider visibility and audience because your book is everywhere at once. You don't have to fight to get it on the shelves at bookstores. It's everywhere for at least the first 3 months. It was back then, it was Borders and Walden Books and Crown, all of those other stores, now Barnes and Noble, everywhere at once. And it's up to you to market and promote and get it off the shelves. You have that 3 before it's backlisted. Whereas self-published, you have to call each of the bookstores. Hey, will you pick up my book? Back then, Borders would allow local authors to do that, and it was easier. But when we started outselling books by major publishing houses, that's when they put a gauntlet down for self-published authors to go through. We had to now have a distributor, whereas before we could work directly with the stores. So I say that there's pros and cons to both, but I encourage my clients to do both, because being self-published, you learn enough about the industry so you know what you're getting and what you're giving up when I land them with a traditional publishing deal.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I know, Jerome, you haven't actually published your book yet. You're working on this documentary now, and it's going to be on Tubi, right?
Oh, it's already released.
It's already there. Okay.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit, just very quickly, about how did the people you work with get this documentary to Tubi? Walk us through that process.
It was a distributor, so we put it out for distribution bids. We used an agent at first because we were a victim of the pandemic. So we didn't have the editing package that we needed. So the quality, the initial quality suffered a little bit, and we received rejections based upon that. We also received rejections based upon people not wanting to show this kind of work. In fact, we were disinvited from 2 high-level film festivals because upon further inspection of our film, the board members weren't comfortable with what we were doing. So ultimately we went through a Black-owned distributing company, and we got it up on Tubi in June. And we're also on Apple, and we are available on Vimeo as well. That's of this week on Vimeo. As for my book, I'm going through traditional publishing outlets because I have a very specific vision for this book, and my book is a utility to see that vision all the way through. If I don't get the terms that I'm hoping for, then I'm going to steer the ship into self-publishing. And it's really interesting because being a part of this group has showed me throughout time that a great deal of Black authors use self-publishing. as a vehicle. And I'd be really interested to know if there are any hard numbers, any data sets that show us how much of that industry are Black authors and versus white. I don't know if there's a way to track that. I don't know. But that would be really interesting, because online sales for books sits at 70% versus 30% sales in mainstream brick and mortar bookstores, which is really intriguing and works well for self-publishing authors.
You may want to look at Bowker's, where you get your ISBN. They have a lot of data there about the number of people who are getting those ISBN numbers. I do know that because I do a lot of research in this area. There's not a lot of data out there. It comes up from time to time, but with what you're asking specifically, I'm sure it may be somewhere, but you have to hunt that information down, because a lot of the data that is out there is strictly about traditional publishing. You know,
Right.
You can get the numbers there, but when it comes to self-publishing, you don't see that as much. So good information. But I will tell you this, on average, and I want everybody to know this, a self-published author is going to sell about 250 books unless they work hard at marketing. So when you are self-published, please do your marketing, do your homework, get out there, get to know people, speak at events, have a great website, work with, marketing coaches, do everything you need to do, because a lot of us don't have the big marketing budget behind us. So don't self-publish and then go hide, self-publish and then do events like the podcast we're on. Just continue to market yourself. That is important. I've run into a lot of people say, hey, I felt self-published, I'm not selling. And, I sold 50 to family, 50 to the people at the church and nothing else. So this is an ongoing process. So please continue to do that. Rodney, how did you publish? I think you already told us you've already told us that you self-published. Somebody did have a question about your contracts with the schools. If I can find it, I'll put it back on the screen. But I know you did self-publish your books, and using AI. I'm sure there are a lot of questions around. Do you add the source for where you get this material from? Which is something that I've started to do. If I do use AI or ChatGPT to help write something, I want to make sure that the source is there, because one of the problems they're running into with ChatGPT is the fact that the information isn't factual or is being pulled from someone else's work. So talk to us very, very quickly about your sourcing in your book. When you've pulled this information about Ida B. Wells and some of the others comes from the ChatGPT, these artificial intelligence sources.
Yeah. Well, what I had to do is I had to do my research first. So I had to watch as many history shows that I could about that person, and pull up as many books as I could about that person. And it automatically gives you the source. But in a sense, what makes my book unique is it's a hypothetical, So what the AI did is it went and it found as much data as it could, any writings, any speeches, any videos, anything that it could about that person. And then I asked it, could you answer this question as you feel, the AI feel this person would answer that question? So it wasn't really like something that would be copyrighted, I would say, which is a lot of people's confusion, especially authors. What they're not understanding is when you write a book, it's from your opinion. And all AI is like having the smartest person in the world sitting right in front of you where you can ask the questions. So because it doesn't have a personality, it's not writing for you. It's giving you answers. It's like I use it for when I want to send out a marketing piece. Could you write a marketing tag for me? Could you write an email for me? can you write a letter to this school superintendent for me? And then I'll take what it gives me, and then I'll put my own flair on it. You know, so it cuts my time down on me sitting there thinking about how do I write the most intelligent letter that I can to a school superintendent. And that's going to take me an hour to do versus asking it'll spit out something in 10 seconds. And then I go, okay, cool. I can use that. You know, so I self-published because I had a plan on a different market that I was targeting. You know, so I target school markets. I target what is it? People that teach kids in home. So because of that, I wanted something. I use a company called Draft to Digital, and they'll print my books out. I'll get them in a week. I pay little royalties to them, probably smaller than anywhere else. And I sell them on my own to the school systems.
Okay.
You know, because I could sell, instead of selling 1 or 2 books at a time, I could sell 50 books to one school.
And that's a great marketing strategy. I do the same thing. I've been selling my book. I have a comic book that teaches kids how to start businesses, and I've been selling them in bulk to schools, after school programs, nonprofits. That's a really good strategy. There's a question here about how controversial AI is. We know it is. We know a lot of writers have a challenge with it. So Rodney, I'm going to ask you to, after this session, you can go in and answer her question. We won't have time to get to it now, but I use AI as well. Very similar. I don't write with it per se, novels or books or anything like that. But as a PR person, it is helpful as I write PR, press releases and things like that. But there are a lot of people who are very confused and afraid of how AI is going to impact the community. And I just say this, let's stop being afraid of technology. There are certain things not going anywhere. AI is not going anywhere. Let's figure out how to regulate it and make sure it's done fairly. But please, let's stop being afraid of technology. I see that a lot. So let's definitely look into how we can use it without abusing it and allowing it to abuse us also. Chyna T, talk to us about your publishing. I know you have a lot of books, correct?
Yes. I have a hybrid publisher for the urban contemporary. And I self-publish my self-help and my children's, but I am looking for a publisher for my children's book series. Since it is children's, I definitely want to get a publisher in on that, because that first series is a 21 book series. So I'm definitely looking for a publisher for that. But for the most part, Briash Media is my hybrid publisher for my urban contemporary.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sounds good. We've done some great work. We're going to wrap up. We've got about 7 minutes to go. Any final questions, please drop those questions in and we will get them answered. I really enjoyed this conversation. We were talking about everything from Every Story Matters, and I definitely want to cover that because it is important that people know our stories matter. I wanted to also make sure we talked about controlling the narrative, and the fact that we veered towards this conversation around the gatekeepers is exactly where I was hoping this would go. Got some really good information there. And then talking about also empowering the community. Lots of ideas around empowerment, about Black joy, about how to channel Black rage and how to use those things to build great pieces of work. We had some amazing people to stay with us the whole time. And we're going to wrap up by giving everybody an opportunity to give a few words of encouragement. A few words of encouragement. We're going to start with you, Chyna. A few words of encouragement to our writers out there, those people who are looking at us in the process of writing or wanting to write a book, but just not sure what to do next. And so seeing all these beautiful Black faces on the screen gives them that encouragement to know that our stories matter, and what we have to say, the world needs to hear it. Forget about book bans and CRT and all these things that the media talks so much about. The reality is that if we stop writing, then our story stops being told. We are the authors of our own life. I remember a professor said that to me at the University of Alabama. I was minoring in African American studies. I think it was the first year they had that. And he said, you are the author of your own story. And I was like, wow, Absolutely. So Chyna T, wrap it up for us. Leave some words of encouragement to our writers out there.
When I get this question all the time, people say, where do you begin? You begin by writing the story. You can worry about everything else that comes with after the story. You got to get the story out because only you know the story. So start with just writing it. But build your team. That's something that a lot of writers come in. They don't have a team. It's just them. They try to wear all the hats. You need an editor. You need beta readers. You need ARC readers. You need people that are going to be honest with you about your work, because a lot of us want to write. A lot of us are not great storytellers, and a lot of us are not great writers. So get a team so they can help you build whatever that thought is that you're trying to put on paper. They're going to be able to help bring that thought into a vision, into reality. And more importantly, do your research. It's different types of publishing. Understand what you're getting yourself into when it comes to a traditional publisher, a hybrid publisher, and self-publishing. Understand where the creativity is, where the creativity is taken from. Know what you're getting yourself into, because a lot of people's goal is to be able to make the bestsellers list and do all that, but you don't know what comes with that. So you have to do your research to make sure that you're on the path to get exactly what you're trying to do, and not listening or trying to follow somebody else's path that may not directly be for you. And the last thing is, listen, purchase hard copy books. I know ebooks are great. Let's get the books back in the homes, because the ebooks on the devices are awesome. But guess what? You're not loaning your phone out. You're not going to loan your iPad out. But if you have a book in your home, someone's going to be able to say, hey, what is this about? You can give them synopsis, and you can loan that book out. I am very adamant about hard copy books. So let's get books and bookshelves back into our homes so that people can actually see what we're reading and actually can take an example and maybe want to take it home themselves. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Chyna T. I really appreciate that. Rodney, you want to give some words of encouragement to our writers?
I would say, if you have an idea, if you have a passion, write your passion. Understand success is not how many books you sell. Success is coming up with an idea and actually getting it done and getting it published. So my word of encouragement is just do it. Just like Nike, just do it.
Absolutely.
You'll be amazed on how you feel when you finish something that you put your mind to.
Excellent. And Mickey, I'm assuming this is for you, Chyna T. I love that color, Hunty. So love that. Dropping some real gems there. Rodney, thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. I love what you're doing, getting out there in front of this AI world, because I'm here. I work in tech to some degree, and it's good to see that you're trying to, you're using it to assist you in these ways. So congratulations on your work, and thank you so much for being with us. Jerome?
To quote the great Chuck D, history's a mystery if you all ain't learning. And that's it.
Excellent. I'm going to find your documentary today and watch it. And so good to hear you. Would love to talk to you again about your story, your mother's story. Very intriguing. Love that you opened up by saying, I don't know who I am. I love that you are digging and doing the homework, doing the work, and discovering who you are. And it just sounds like a remarkable story. Do you have a title for your book already?
Deep North.
Deep North, that's correct. Okay, and I'm in the deep South down here in Louisiana and New Orleans. So,
and
I'm
all
from Alabama.
it all reflected back up there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate your time. Ms. Kai?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Some of the greatest risk takers have been in the publishing industry. Mary B. Morrison, Kimberly Lawson Roby, Victoria Christopher Murray, J.D. Mason, all were self-published before landing deals with major publishing houses, and their careers took off. Louise Hay was rejected by every major house before self-publishing her book, You Can Heal Your Life, and landing on the New York Times bestsellers list for 13 weeks. She went on to found Hay House, that eventually published Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, Susan Orman, and many other heavy hitters in the literary world. Remember, it's about book opportunities, not just book sales. My son was published at 16 and landed a 4-year academic scholarship with Fisk University. How many book sales would it have taken to accomplish what that did? He had the opportunity because he had a book. My thing is, write the book, tell the story your way, learn the industry and the craft enough to put it out there. And remember, it's not about book sales. It is about book opportunities.
Excellent. Thank you. As always, you are so insightful. Good luck with all the work that you're doing and looking forward to continuing to connect with you. So thank you so much for being with us. Now, Born?
What was the question again? Sorry.
Some words of wisdom to our writers.
Oh yeah, just I mean, if this is what you love, you don't really need no motivation. You'll do it naturally. If it ain't in you, you ain't gonna do it. So I mean, just do what's in you.
I love that you're here, and I love that you're representing your generation, but also you are sharing a part of yourself that can be a healing factor for other people going in the same direction that you went into. And I hope that you know that, and just being on the screen and sharing what you've done is so inspirational to so many people, because we all hit on hard times. We all make mistakes. We all do things, but you're trying to do something positive with that. So I just want to give you a big round of applause for all that you've overcome and the fact that you're willing to pour it into these books, and don't stop writing. Okay. Never stop writing. You've got something to share. And so just thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And our final writer, you want to give us a little word, a couple words?
Yeah, well, in the world of storytelling, there's room for every perspective, every narrative, and every dream. Your story, your characters, and your imagination are your own, and they are invaluable. And you just write your story. You will find an audience eventually. So
excellent. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. We have done 2 hours talking about a topic on Pen Posse. We will come again in December. I'll be asking and looking for panelists. For the panelists here, stay with me so I can give you a formal farewell. But before we go, a couple of things I want to tell you about. We're going to be doing the Black Writers Workspace Black Ink Book Festival in New Orleans on May 11, 2024. We have author groups available. Please register with us. If you're in the Black Writers Workspace, you'll definitely have access to how to do that. It's on Eventbrite. It's also on my website at author Michelle D. Jackson. You can find out how to register. Last year or this year in January, we had over 500 people to come out, 75 authors. It was an amazing, amazing event. So please be a part of that. Secondly, I will be, I just launched an imprint. We're going to be publishing books, self-publish, helping self-publish authors, as well as some hybrid and some traditional publishing contracts that we're calling exclusive author contracts. Would love to work with you. So please look us up at jpgbooks.org and connect with me. Lastly, everybody, please put your book on directtoauthor.com. We have about 400 books in the database. Our goal is to get people to go in, look at your book, click into it, learn about it. You can upload YouTube links. You can do a host of different things. But the goal here is so that we can get some direct sales to our authors. So the authors can add their website and get direct sales. We're not making any money. We're not a fulfillment agency. We're just promoting the books. So add your books. It is free. That is direct, the number 2 author.com. So thank you, everyone. Looking forward to continuing to work with you. And for all of you, thank you so much. So stay with us, though. Take care.
Thank you. Peace.
Thank you.